Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a tale so chilling, so utterly terrifying. It makes your blood run cold. Forget your friendly neighborhood vampires. We're talking about an ancient horror that reshaped history. Get ready for the shocking story of the Jure Grando Alilović family. The real-life vampire plague that ravaged a Serbian village, and how its shadow stretched across the entire world. Imagine this. It's the 17th century. A remote village in Serbia, nestled deep in the mountains. A place where whispers travel faster than news. Life is hard, but predictable. Until one night, everything changes. A family of 5 ordinary people like you and me wakes up irrevocably transformed, not into sparkly, romantic figures, but something far more monstrous. They become creatures of immense, unnatural power, thirsting for life itself. This isn't just a local legend. This is the terrifying beginning of a global nightmare. But before we get to their reign of terror, let's set the stage. Our story truly begins much earlier, with a name you might not know, but one that struck fear into the hearts of an entire empire. Jure Grando Alilović. This isn't a fictional character. He was a real person, who, after his death in 1656, was said to have risen from his grave. For 16 long years, Jure terrorized the village of Kringa in Istria, which is now part of Croatia, not Serbia as initially thought. But the historical accounts are too significant to ignore when talking about real vampire plagues. He wasn't some shadowy figure. People claimed to have seen him, knocking on doors at night, and every house he visited would soon face a death within its walls. The villagers were desperate. They tried everything: prayers, rituals, even seeking help from the local priest. But Jure, the Strigan, as they called him, a local term for vampire, seemed unstoppable. His presence brought pestilence and death, creating a panic that spread far beyond Kringa. This was one of the earliest and most well-documented cases of a vampire epidemic in recorded history, detailed by none other than Johann Weichert von Valvassor, a respected Slovenian polymath, in his monumental work, The Glory of the Duchy of Carniola. This wasn't folklore. It was an account of real terror. The sheer desperation led to extreme measures. In 1672, after years of torment, 9 brave villagers, led by the village elder Miho Radetic, confronted Jure's supposed resting place. They unearthed his coffin. What they found inside horrified them. Jure Grando, 16 years after his burial, appeared completely undecayed, a smile reportedly etched on his lips, his face flushed. This sight confirmed their worst fears and cemented his legend. The first attempt to kill him involved a stake through the heart, but the stake reportedly bounced off his chest. The terror intensified. Finally, the local priest, Father Giorgio, armed with a crucifix, commanded Jure to leave them in peace. Only then, after more prayers and a gruesome struggle, did one of the villagers, Stipin Milezik, manage to decapitate the unholy corpse with an axe. According to accounts, a piercing shriek echoed through the graveyard, and blood poured from the severed neck. Only then, did the plague of Jure Grando come to an end. This terrifying event, this real-life vampire plague, sent shockwaves across Europe. It fueled debates among scholars, theologians, and medical professionals about the very nature of life, death, and the supernatural. It was a tangible threat that forced people to confront the darkest corners of their beliefs, and it set the stage for something even more catastrophic. Now, imagine this fear amplified 100-fold. Fast forward to the 18th century. The legend of Jure Grando had faded into a cautionary tale, but the underlying dread of the undead lingered. Then, a new horror emerged, again from the heart of a remote Serbian village, echoing the Grando story, but with a far more devastating twist. This wasn't just one resurrected corpse. This was a family, 5 strong, transformed in a single night. The details are hazy, shrouded in the mists of time and terror. But the accounts speak of a family, perhaps exposed to a primordial, ancient strain of vampirism, or perhaps cursed by an unspeakable act. They became something new, something more powerful than any single strigger before them. Unlike Jure, who was a local tormentor, this family, now a coven of 5, possessed an insatiable hunger and abilities beyond anything witnessed. They moved with unnatural speed, whispered thoughts into people's minds, and could drain the life force from entire communities without a single bite. Their transformation was swift and brutal. One night, a quiet family, the next, a predatory unit. They didn't just haunt, they commanded. They didn't just feed, they harvested. Their presence alone was enough to spread a creeping dread that sickened people, made them weak, and left them vulnerable to their terrible influence. This wasn't a plague of infection in the traditional sense. It was a plague of subjugation and existential terror. As their power grew, so did their ambition. They weren't content to simply terrorize a village. The world, teeming with life, was their canvas. They moved silently, a shadow across countenance, leaving a trail of desolation and fear. They were the architects of a silent, global vampiric plague, turning the most powerful individuals and institutions into their unwitting servants. Kings and queens, generals and scholars, all became pawns in their macabre game. The 18th century, an age of enlightenment, was plunged into a new dark age, not by war or disease, but by the insidious, pervasive influence of these 5 monstrous beings. They didn't seek to rule overtly. They preferred to pull the strings from the shadows, shaping empires, instigating conflicts, and feeding on the chaos and despair they sowed. The world was their buffet, its population their cattle. The very fabric of society began to unravel under their subtle, yet absolute control. Think about it: the rise of secret societies, the unexplained disappearances, the sudden shifts in power dynamics across nations. Historians attributed these to political machinations, economic pressures, or social unrest. But what if it was all part of a grand, horrifying design orchestrated by these 5 immortal creatures? They were the ultimate puppeteers, their faces unseen, their names unspoken, their horror a pervasive undercurrent of human history. This is where their story intersects with the official records of the 18th century vampire plague that actually did sweep through parts of Eastern Europe. The panicked exhumations, the gruesome discoveries of seemingly fresh corpses, the widespread fear that led to royal decrees and scientific investigations. What if those documented cases, like the famous stories of Peter Plagojewicz and Arnold Payol, weren't just isolated incidents of superstitious hysteria, but symptoms of a much larger global infection initiated by our family of 5? Peter Plagojewicz, for instance, a Serbian peasant who died in 1725 after his death. Several villagers reportedly died after short illnesses, claiming Plagojewicz had visited them in their sleep and choked them. The villagers, convinced he was a vampire, exhumed his body. They found it undecayed, with fresh blood around his mouth. They staked him through the heart, and, according to accounts, blood poured from his body and mouth, and he let out a loud groan. This incident, along with Arnold Powell's case, where a former soldier was said to have become a vampire and then caused an epidemic of vampirism among the villagers after his reburial, were officially investigated by Austrian military doctors. Their detailed reports circulated throughout Europe, causing a sensation and leading to what became known as the vampire controversy. These historical events, often dismissed as mere superstition, take on a terrifying new meaning when viewed through the lens of our powerful vampire family. What if Plagojewicz and Payol weren't just isolated cases, but early, uncontrolled outbreaks of a vampiric strain they had unleashed? Perhaps these individuals were just unfortunate victims, turning into lesser vampires, their bodies reacting violently to the ancient contagion spread by the original 5. The horrific exhumations that shook an entire empire weren't just about local fears. They were the empire's desperate attempts to understand and contain an unknown threat, a threat whose true source remained hidden. The horror of this family lies not just in their individual power, but in their ability to orchestrate, to corrupt, and to subtly dismantle the world from within. They didn't need to conquer with armies. They conquered with whispers, with fear, and with the slow, agonizing erosion of hope. They were the original, global puppet masters of terror. And here's the most chilling part. There's no clear record of their end. Did they continue their reign into the modern era, adapting to new technologies, new forms of control? Or were they eventually defeated by an unknown force, a forgotten hero, or perhaps by their own internal struggles? The fact that we don't know their fate is perhaps the most frightening thought of all. It leaves open the chilling possibility that they, or their descendants, are still out there, shaping our world in ways we can't even comprehend. From the terrifying reality of Jure Grando and the documented Serbian vampire plagues, to the ultimate nightmare of a family of 5 rising to global dominance. These stories remind us of the thin veil between our ordered reality and the monstrous unknown. They force us to question the shadows of history and wonder what other unspeakable horrors might be lurking just beyond our sight. What do you think? Do these historical accounts of vampires hold a grain of truth? Or are they purely products of superstition? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this dive into darkness as fascinating as I did, Please give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button for more chilling tales and forgotten histories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.